Welcome to another episode of OTA on the Air. My guest with me today is Max Farrell with WorkHound. So Max, thanks for joining us.
Hey, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Tom.
We met each other many, many years ago when you first founded this company and brought it into the trucking industry. But tell us a little bit about what WorkHound is and what you all do.
Yeah, so WorkHound is a real-time feedback software company focused on frontline workers. And trucking's been a big focus for us since we started the company, because what we saw when we started the company is that turnover is really high in trucking. A lot of guys quit because they don't feel respected and they don't feel like they have a voice. And historically, the only options for capturing that had been exit interviews or annual surveys. And so it's either too late or too slow to address issues. And especially with what we're seeing in the labor challenges right now and getting skilled, qualified professional drivers or just any skilled talent to join teams, companies are realizing they have to be proactive instead of reactive. They can't keep trying to fill the leaky bucket and think that recruiting is going to mask their turnover challenges. They really need to roll up their sleeves and understand their people's issues and fix them so they retain more people and ultimately build a better business. And that's where we focus at WorkHound.
So explain to us what that looks like in real time. Like, how does that work? How does that look like? What's the end user experience for the driver?
So again, our goal is to create a feedback loop. We want drivers to share anything that's on their mind, anywhere, anytime, anonymously, without the fear of retaliation. And so the way that we do that is via text message. So WorkHound is not an app. There's no downloading or installing. We prompt drivers to share feedback anonymously because we know that there's that fear of retaliation in the industry. And so they get a text that says, "Hey, Tom, tap the link to tell us how work is going at OTA. Your anonymous feedback helps." They click that link. It takes them to a page on their smartphone that in 90 seconds they share, "I'm not driving the truck. Here's how I feel about work." And then they have an open-ended area to just share whatever they want about why they feel that way. And the goal for that is to help companies unearth the good, the bad, and the ugly. Often companies will say, "Hey, we want a survey," but surveys create bias. It's management saying, "Hey, we think we know what the issues are," but if your turnover is like 100%, there's obviously blind spots. And so we want to help companies fill those blind spots. So that's the driver experience. It's really short and simple. And then companies are getting access to a dashboard to be able to see what is the pulse of our people, what are the trends, what are the issues, and how can we do something about this feedback? So let's say a driver shares an issue like, "Hey, my wife's going to quit because she's not on my insurance. I'm tired of this. I'm done." The company's like, "Gosh, we can fix this." And so one of the really cool things that we've built at WorkHound is a way for companies to request to connect to this anonymous driver. So that person can reveal their identity to say, "Yep, this is who I am. Please, let's get this issue fixed." And this issue actually happened at a company where it turned out the guy's wife was on his insurance. There was just confusion about paperwork. And last year alone, we helped companies retain over 8,700 drivers and other frontline workers across North America because companies were proactive in addressing issues before somebody walked out the door. So we do things like that. We have ways where they can communicate with drivers even if they're still anonymous. And then, as I mentioned, it's a feedback loop, so we want to close it. And we help companies send communications back out to their entire workforce on a weekly basis to say, "Hey, here's the actions we took based on what you said. Here's the initiatives we're looking into, and here are the miscommunications." And the goal for all this is to give companies the opportunity to show, "Hey, we're listening, we're working to get better, and your voice matters at our company." And at a very high level, that's some of the stuff we do at WorkHound.
So how does that process work? Since it is an open-ended feedback coming from them, is there a way to categorize? How do you take all of that? Let's say you're dealing with a company that's got, a couple hundred drivers and all of them respond back at the same time, right? Is there a way that you have AI or something of that nature that then categorizes that into a specific area that then the company can act on?
Yeah, it's a great question. 100%. So we have a system in place that looks at every comment and determines what's the keyword behind it and what's the sentiment. We're also able to help companies see where is that comment happening inside the business. So some companies may segment their feedback by driver manager or terminal manager or location or driver type, whatever it may be. Really, one of the biggest breakthroughs for us as a company and as a product has been companies using this feedback as operational intelligence. So they can jump in and see what are the themes that are causing heartburn in our business. So it may be equipment or logistics or communication or pay. And then they can drill in and see where are the issues inside our company. So are we seeing issues around communication with driver manager A? Okay, well, this is really great data that we can go have a coaching conversation with this driver manager. Or if there's a lot of frustration around equipment for flatbed drivers, then we can realize, all right, we need to go prioritize making some improvements there before we go focus on our dry division. And so it's been really awesome to watch companies make small changes, little things like adding a pet policy or fixing a dirty shower or something messed up in a driver's lounge, all the way to full sail changing how they spec trucks or their benefits package. And it's all because they listen to their people. And so for us, that's really rewarding.
So now, do you have a way to, benchmark that within your client base? You know what, like, we understand that, X number of drivers in your company think that this is an issue. Is there an option or an opportunity for that to proliferate across the other sectors of the industry, or see how they compare to other sectors or other companies that are within, your network?
Yeah, I think all of us either secretly or publicly love benchmarking because we all want to know that we're not the fattest kid at the gym. So we certainly do some of that. We have a dedicated customer success team, and they work really closely with each of the companies that we partner with to make sure that they're understanding the data and the trends around it. And benchmarking is part of that. So we do have some ways that we share reporting to show here's the data that your company has, but also here's what we're seeing with similar sized companies that we also work with.
So then what are you seeing as well? Because obviously your customer base is not just trucking, it's obviously other areas. Are you seeing trending in other areas? And this is just anecdotal that I
Yeah.
have from conversations with other folks, is everyone's in this workforce shortage scenario and everyone's trying to maintain or retain as many people as they can. I guess, what are you seeing in other industries? Are other industries starting to feel that pinch, and has trucking been any more successful because we've had more time in this of retaining folks, or is it just kind of this universal problem?
So yeah, I can certainly speak to some of the data that we're seeing, and then just anecdotally what we're observing in the labor market everywhere. Because I would say whether it's trucking or even a tech company like us, the markets are wild right now. It's a whole different ball game, and companies need to adapt or they'll be left behind. So with some of the data that we're seeing, one of the biggest things that workers are looking for is career growth. They want to know, what does my trajectory look like, not just over the next week of the work I'm doing, but how is this company going to set me up for my personal goals a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And a lot of companies haven't put in the time to do that, either because they thought they haven't, or they just didn't expect somebody to stick around. But more and more, that's becoming a critical piece of the conversation. So, we do work with some companies and their office staff, and they want to know, how is this company going to help me grow? Because if I feel like there's a ceiling here, I may feel like the only option I have is to go look elsewhere. If I had to boil it down, what I'd say is that there's three big things that companies need to pay attention to keep as many of the people that they want to as possible. And it's compensation, making sure that their people are paid enough where money's off the table, team, where they like the team that they're working with. And the third is that they're learning and growing and being challenged. And so if companies are making sure all those boxes are checked with their people as often as possible, it's really hard to get somebody to leave a company. But if a few of those things are missing, then people are going to look for greener pastures.
So then, I guess, walk us through a little bit about, how did this idea come about? Like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
What was the problem you were trying to solve when y'all came up with this?
So I really appreciate that you talk about the problem that we're trying to solve, because I think one of the biggest missteps people make in beginning an entrepreneurial journey is they fall in love with the solution and not falling in love with the problem that they're trying to solve. And for us, we were really obsessed with how do we get people to love the work they do. And so initially, my focus was on corporate innovation. I quit my job at a tech company in 2014 and was thinking, how do you take this energy inside a startup where there's disruption, there's purpose, and you apply it to these big established companies where people are usually disengaged in their work. And so I went out and ran workshops at large companies, but realized I was selling a vitamin, and I really wanted to be solving a painkiller problem. I was really fortunate. I got a chance to connect with your counterpart at the Arkansas Trucking Association, Shannon Newton, and she helped connect me to folks in the industry, and really became clear trucking is a great place to focus on this. And step one of starting to address this leaky bucket issue is listening to people to understand why they're thinking about leaving the company, and giving companies really easy ways to do something with it. So as we started to dig into the industry, I'm a big believer that you have to operate with empathy and really go in the field and understand what people are going through. So we sat with dispatchers, we sat with executives, we got in the truck and rode with drivers. So, I rode with a driver from Iowa to Los Angeles. So I've slept in the truck, ate in the truck, showered at truck stops, because for us, it was really important to understand life on the road before we launched the business. And you'll appreciate this. So when I did my ride along, it was with a guy named Charles. He calls himself the turntable trucker. So when he's not driving, he's DJing. And so Charles, when he gets to Los Angeles, he backs the truck up against the dock in South LA. And we're about to be detained for 7 hours. I did not understand detention time until I had to sit through it for that long. But Charles pulls out his turntables from underneath the bed of his truck, plugs up to the speaker system in the Peterbilt, and just starts jamming out because he's practicing for his next nightclub gig back in Iowa. And I was sitting there, there's not much else to do. So ultimately I told Charles, like, hey, do you have a microphone? And I want to rap. And so there's a video out there somewhere of me and Charles, the turntable trucker, jamming out in the back of a Peterbilt at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday in LA. He's DJing, I'm freestyle rapping, just having a good time. And those sorts of things really got me to fall in love with the industry, of just the serendipity and the stories and the friendships that come from this. At its core, trucking is a people business.
Oh yeah, without question. I think that's the part that I think most general run-of-the-mill folks don't get, is how people oriented and how important people are to the industry to make it work, and how unique the individuals are. And I've seen the video of you two doing your little show, and it's a great video to go see. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the important part, is that the industry is so people oriented. We have such a diverse amount of backgrounds and personalities and likes and dislikes that you have to be able to adapt to those. And like you said, the solution that you guys are providing, or the problem that you're solving, is being to get after those. Because the biggest problem I think we have in the industry, especially with the driver core, is word of mouth is our biggest killer. It just grows and grows and grows, and social media has just made that worse. So I guess, how, other than just that direct link to the driver, direct link to the employees, are there other things that you all are looking at doing to get a more comprehensive look into that? Is there some social media components? Is there a way of helping companies understand the good things and bad things that are out there about them, that they can help them not only retain but also recruit new employees, and the impact it has on them?
For sure. You bring up a really great point as far as like the word of mouth and the rumor mill. Like it's rampant. And one of the really important things that companies have to focus on is figuring out, how do we do a better job controlling the message? Because if you're not controlling the message, there's a bunch of other companies out there that are happy to do it. If a driver has an issue and you don't have a place for them to share those issues, another company's recruiter will happily be that driver's therapist. And so from our standpoint, by creating that feedback loop, it is an opportunity to control that message, where this is a place where drivers can go share that feedback, knowing that the company's actively looking at it and figuring out how to address these things. And when they see that commitment, then that funnels more of that insight to a place like WorkHound versus going to Facebook or forums or something like that. But the other thing you mentioned is around what are some of the other ways companies can use this data or better interact with their people. And if you're listening to your people, that's a really great way to actually recruit. So often people think that the feedback that we get at WorkHound is just going to be a complaint fest. But in fact, a third of the data is positive. It's people sharing praise about why they're really happy at that company. And so that data becomes a really powerful resource for social media testimonials to share, hey, this is a direct quote from a guy that works at our company that's been here for 3 years. Don't you want to have this experience? And so companies are leveraging those comments in order to share. Another thing that we've built is a way for companies to capture referrals from happy drivers. And there's no offense to the recruiting leaders that are listening in, but the best recruiters out there are happy drivers. And so if you're capturing how they're feeling about work and they're feeling great and they share a high satisfaction score, let's give them an opportunity to refer, because pretty much anybody out there has a referral bonus at that point. And so, take advantage of the happy drivers that you've worked really hard to create, because in trucking, we have a really bad habit of trying to fix what's broken. And sometimes we need to celebrate what's working well.
Yeah, and that's definitely, the interesting part is when I was with the trucking company, we had done an employee survey tool that we had run through, and one of the interesting comments that was left by a driver was, "I hate when you all do this because you never do anything about it." And I think that's the interesting part about what you all do is it's one part of the process, and if you do not have the closure or the execution on addressing those issues, or at least communicating why the decision is the way it is, that you're doing, there again, you're not getting the full service of what WorkHound offers if you're not doing something about the feedback you get. I guess what is your experience in that when you're implementing that with customers of yours that they go through that process? Where are you seeing the successes, and where are you seeing some folks being challenged with this that may not be implementing some of the solutions or not using the data properly?
Yeah, so the way I think about it is getting feedback is good. Doing something about it is even better, but telling people what we did, that's the cherry on the sundae. And so when companies think about these engagement initiatives, they spend a lot of time focusing on getting feedback, and they're really focused on, we want to get a lot of feedback. We just want it and hold on to it. But that's the easy part. Like there's so many different ways you can gather feedback. You can do a Survey Monkey, you can use Google Forms, you can call people, you can do, piece of paper suggestion box type stuff. That's the easy stuff. The really hard thing is understanding that data that you're getting and then doing something about it. And that's where we've invested all of our resources as a company, is to really help companies understand what are our people saying out there, and then making sure that companies have a commitment to action, because you're spot on. It's really disengaging if you're asked for feedback and nothing happens from it. And so we work really closely with companies to make sure that there's a commitment to listening and a commitment to taking action. And a lot of it starts at the leadership level. There's companies out there that say, may have somebody that's not a leader that is really passionate about engagement, but if they aren't tied to a leader that can facilitate some of that strategic change, then it's almost like running into a dead end. So for us, it's really important that there is leadership buy-in anytime there's a new initiative like this, so that strategic change can happen.
So what is on the horizon for WorkHound? What does that future look like? What is your aspirations for the company?
Yeah, I'm really proud of our progress. Always hungry for more, but I'm really proud of our progress over the past 7 years. So we were really fortunate. A couple months ago, we announced a fundraise with a new investor, Level Equity, and so they put $12 million into WorkHound to help us grow. And I think it's a testament to the lean and scrappy nature of our company to this point. And really, it puts some fuel on the fire to allow us to take on some new things. And so first and foremost, it's making sure we take care of our team and reward them for getting us to this point. Beyond that, it's growing the team so that we can start to do more to tell our story to other parts of this industry, but also we're getting interest from other parts of the supply chain that are saying, hey, we have the same challenges in warehousing or manufacturing or in our logistics company. Can you help us out? And what's great is that we now have over 65,000 drivers and frontline workers on the platform and 80 plus companies. And these companies are some of the most innovative companies in trucking in North America. And they're telling us, here's what we need to build next in order to be a better version of ourselves. And so they're helping guide our roadmap and a lot of it's going to focus on how do we find new ways for companies to take action on this feedback? How do we help them better understand the data so that they are using feedback data the same way that they're using telematics data to make business decisions? And so we're continuing to position this insight as operational intelligence. And there's a lot of work that goes into it, but when companies are making changes based on being able to clearly understand what's being said, really special things happen. And then the other big thing for us is continuing to embrace WorkHound as a communication platform where doing a feedback loop is one thing, but we want to create other ways for companies to connect with their people so that they really can understand what's going on and build a better company.
Yeah, the interesting part, and I say this a lot about the trucking industry, is that we went from no data to big data in the snap of a finger. I mean, it was amazing how fast the industry, and everyone has had that, but it is something that with the introduction of electronic logging devices and products like yours and telematics and all the technology that has been implemented in this industry in just the past 10 years is just changed dynamically that industry, and having the ability to not only collect and process that data, but then also making it into some sort of decision-making assistance tool is always a challenge and takes a lot of creativity. And the interesting part is the simplest solution is usually the best one. And I think what you all provide is a pretty simple solution. If you want feedback for how your drivers are feeling about their work environment, they're going to get it in using your tool in a manner that's easily to decipher pretty quick. So yeah, amazing work what you guys are doing, and looking forward to seeing what you all have next.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Tom. It's we're excited for the road ahead, and we're forever grateful for the folks that would talk to us at a show a few years ago, like yourself, or companies that would take our calls. So definitely filled with gratitude as we enter this new phase of our company.
Good. Well, Max, thanks for joining us on OTA on the Air.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom.
Right.